weekend's pay-per-view, UFC 176. Israel Adesanya defeated Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier by unanimous decision, earning a 49-46, 49-46, and 50-45 on the judges' scorecards. Omar, let me throw it over to you first. What were your impressions of the last style bender getting it done once again, defending his middleweight strap?
So it wasn't the most exciting fight, and I think a lot of people have had their opinions on the performance. They've had opinions on Izzy and how he is now as a champion as opposed to essentially how he was as a contender. I saw some criticism online, like people were leaving after the third round, which, as somebody who was there, is actually very true. Tons of people started flooding out of that arena once it was round 3. My biggest issue is no one pushed the pace in that fight. And that includes Jared Cannonier. And every time we have these issues with Izzy fights, everybody loves to blame Izzy, and no one looks at the other side. Jared Cannonier spent all week talking shit about how Izzy ain't going to freeze me when I get in there. I'm going to push the pace. I'm going to go forward. He's not going to stop me. He can't do anything to stop what I got. He didn't do shit. Jared Cannonier did dick all in that fight. Granted, Izzy didn't do that much more, but for all the stuff both of those guys were talking, neither one of them were really able to pull the trigger. And I think a lot of it was more, in my opinion, on Jared Cannonier. He's the contender. He wants the belt. You can't go out there and just stay frozen in front of the champ. To be clear, this is not one of those you need to steal it from the champ arguments. This is simply, you can't be mad that you lost that fight if you literally didn't do anything to win the fight. I did see every round for Izzy, but it wasn't a relatively impressive performance. It was a point fighting performance. He did enough to, attack what he needed to attack, stay at distance what he needed to stay at distance from. He didn't really put anything on the line. There were no moments there where anybody was really in trouble. I don't even think he ended up, rocking Cannonier by any stretch of the imagination. He might have had Cannonier off balance every once in a while, but for the most part, it was kind of like a very hard sparring session. There was never really any drama in that fight to enjoy, to kind of sink your teeth into. It was just a very much like boom, 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 distance, boom, 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 distance. But again, Cannonier didn't do anything to change that. He had 5 rounds to try to adapt and do something, and he didn't. So a little lackluster performance overall, I think, from both guys, but Izzy's still the champ.
Mark, do you think this was more Adesanya to blame, or Cannonier should also share the culpability, as Omar is saying?
Yeah, I think you can very safely blame them both. I don't think Izzy gets any kind of a pass just because Cannonier didn't bring it to him. I think they both catch blame. These guys stand across from him, and none of them can solve the puzzle of his technique. And because of that, as much as I agree Cannonier gets blame for sure, to earn your shot and come out and not push the fight more than he pushed it, he absolutely gets blame as well. But none of these guys can figure out Izzy's technique. So you would like to see, when Izzy has such an advantage, him push it, him do something to put a stamp on things. And instead, he's very comfortable being like, oh, well, this guy can't get inside my technique, so I'm just going to chill over here. And it's not the way that I wish that it was, And obviously, Chris Pratt said the same thing. Izzy's giving shit to Chris Pratt, and I get it. But, I'm allowed to have that take, and that is my take, and I will keep saying it. For a guy who talked all week about going for the kill and how he was going to do something spectacular and put on a show, he didn't really take any risks in there at all. He teased us in round 1 because he kind of put his foot on the gas a little bit more than he has been, and then he kind of realized by the end of round 1, you know what? Cannonier's not really bringing it to me, so I don't really need to take any risks, and he didn't. So it's kind of more of the same. He is very able to say, all right, this guy's not really touching me. I'm going to stay smooth. I'm going to stay clean. I'll land the jab. I'll land my kicks, and I'll win the cards. And, like what can we really talk about? Like, are we going to break down Izzy's technique? Like, we know it's great. Everyone knows it's great. The guy's technique is incredible. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to say. It's a shame because he is so fun outside of the cage. He talks so well. He understands entertaining in a way that few fighters do. Mm-hmm. And he is morphing into being an unexciting fighter. So, I mean, just look at his entrance as an example. Like, that was incredible. That was one of the coolest entrances I've ever seen. The
crowd lost its collective shit.
I would imagine.
When the bell rang, oh my God, bro. Everybody lost their whole mind in that place because we all knew what was about to go down. It was epic. It was a very epic moment.
For sure. Like, the man gets everything about his job, about how to entertain, about how to draw people in. And he is a star, but imagine he was still KOing dudes. The guy would be a megastar at this point. Yeah. He would be twice the star power that he is right now. But he's fighting this way, and it kind of sucks.
It's so interesting, though, because when you look at it, it's like I wish guys were real dicks to him because it seems like the guys that are real dicks to him are the ones that bring the fight. Like, look at Costa.
Yeah,
Costa got railroaded by Izzy. In one of the worst ways imaginable. Yep. But, like, these guys that he's showing respect to. And Cannonier, in all fairness, is a terrifying human being. Like, he looks like he will lay you out without trying. So, like, I'm not going to criticize Izzy for not wanting to get hit by this man, right? But at the same time, if you look at Volkanovski's performance, Volkanovski did literally the opposite of Izzy's game plan. He went forward. He made sure that Holloway was on the back foot the whole time. He made sure that he was winning in points, but he was also winning in octagon control. He was also winning in damage. He was winning everywhere, not just in one places or another. Like, Volkanovski had a dominant performance where, Izzy
outpointed his opponent.
He relaxed.
Yeah, he had a pointing performance, I guess. It was all for points. It was never for the kill. It was never to, like, bring the fight, so to say.
Yep.
And it was disappointing, especially when you get hyped up from that entrance. I mean, if you didn't think people were cheering for Izzy at the start of that fight because of how hyped up everybody was, I mean, I don't know how to explain it to you, but
the man had Jared's name on an urn.
Bro, right. And the way he walked out, he took his time, the hat,
man.
Just
he's such
everything.
A showman.
It was amazing. It was amazing.
I love about Adesanya, what I love about Adesanya's star power is that I really get the sense that he's a star because he just does him, and he actually doesn't give a fuck. I really get the sense that Adesanya,
I agree,
just does what he thinks is fun and, like, wants to have fun in his life, and he can. Whereas, like, there are other stars, like, I would juxtapose him against, like, a Colby Covington. Colby, with his star-making decisions outside of the cage that, like, propelled his notoriety, I felt have been more calculated. Like, Colby, like, kind of thought to himself, and I'm projecting this a little bit, or maybe a lot, but it seems like Colby was like, you know what would be good? You know what would be good for my career? If I was very provocative.
And then he totally accurate. You're not projecting anything. It's exactly
right. And then it seems like he really consciously made the pivot to be very political. Whereas Adesanya is just like, I love anime, I love dance, I used to be a b-boy, and he just, like, fucking has fun. Like, and it makes him so magnetic.
Yeah, he's magnetic.
I love it.
Great word.
Yeah. And this is why, first of all, the word you were looking for...
He wears pearls and fucking does his nails.
Yeah.
The word you were looking for Colby Covington is a sellout. That is the legitimate... That I'm not even to try to be a dick, because I don't like him. But if you look up the word sellout, that's literally what he did. Supposedly that's not him. It's a character. It's this, it's that. But he did it to make money. He became this, like, half racist dick to make money, to be a draw, whether he was the heel or not. You know what I mean? Israel Adesanya is kind of the opposite. He's sort of like, I'm going to be me, just like you said. I'm going to get my nails painted. Why? Because I can. Because what are you going to do about it? Because you can't fight me. I'm going to have pearls because I've always wanted them. I like pearls. What are you going to do? You can't do a goddamn thing. To me, that's what I love about Izzy. All the the Strickland alpha male cucks out there that don't like Izzy because he tends to be who he wants to be and he's not the man that they think that he is. I love that shit. Make them all mad. Make them all cry. I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. It sells it for me every time.
Everything everyone is saying right now about him being himself and the genuineness and the entertainer that he just naturally is and the magnetism. That's why I still root for the guy every single fight. I can't remember the last time I rooted against him, even though I'm so fucking frustrated by his performances. And I'm going to root for him again against Alex Pereira.
Yeah, you're right. I was there. When you think about it and you're watching, you're like, this is it. This is going to be the one that he really messes with him. He really messes him up. He just makes you believe this is going to be the one.
I thought this was going to be the one simply because of the style. And I'll tell you, if the next one is not the one, if he somehow fights Alex Pereira, I give up.
But I mean, to be fair, if Alex Pereira plays that game, I mean, who's the real dick in that matchup?
That's my point. I can't imagine Pereira allowing that game to occur. Like
100% agree.
That one has to be a fight.
But I've heard a few people say in the aftermath that the opponent has to take Adesanya to that dark place, kind of like Gastelum did, and kind of like Bohashinia did, Paulo Costa. And I have to agree. I mean, I remember that moment in one of the fight week stare downs when Costa took out a black belt out of his pants or something. Like it had it hidden, and tried to give it to Adesanya. Adesanya like balled it up and chucked it at him with like real like anger. I was like, oh shit! Like for some reason, Paulo Costa has gotten under Adesanya's skin, and it really seems like Adesanya wants to fuck him up, and he fucking did.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen that since, have we? Or has he fought Whitaker since?
Not that, but it's never been. Whitaker. But it's never been that kind of animosity. The guys that he really has like animosity with tend to be the guys that get messed up. Even in that first Whitaker fight, fight against Izzy, he did not like Izzy. He took it. He did not like that dude at all.
Right.
The dancing and all that stuff. Whitaker talked about how he wanted to hit him even harder when he started dancing on his way to the octagon, and it cost him. You know what I mean? Costa was the same thing. But I think once you start getting into this, like, you know, not playing the game, I guess, with Izzy, then I just don't think it doesn't seem to line up. We all tend to just see these sparring matches that he gives.
You know who else Izzy didn't like going into their fight? Derek Brunson.
Oh, yeah.
He ruined Derek Brunson.
You know who he did like going into their fight? Yoel Romero. Look what happened.
Anderson Silva.
This theme. Anderson Silva. Yeah, this theme is very correct.
Right. With Yoel, instead of like having an intense stare down, they had like a dance off.
Yep.
Remember that with Yoel? Yoel did like a backflip.
I do.
Yeah. Yoel was probably yelling in the cage, I love you, and it just got worse and worse from there.
I love
as the fight progressed.
One last thing I want to say about Adesanya is that while he might not have had bad blood with Gastelum went after him.
Yes, that's what. That is the only way you're beating Israel Adesanya.
But I thought that's what Cannonier was going to do.
That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah, like that's how. If you watch Cannonier fight any other one of his fights, he fights just like that, going forward, not giving guys the chance to do much. Like you check one of his kicks, your leg's probably going to fall off. Cannonier is an animal, and the fact that he just stayed back and just let himself get tagged, like tried to hold Izzy against the fence with no actual plan in mind, it was frustrating on all angles.
What's wild about fighting, what makes fighting so interesting, is that so much of it is mental, and I think that what happens, because Cannonier kind of fought like this against Whitaker too, and I think what happens sometimes is that even though guys know what they have to do, sometimes they get in there and the fight starts and they get across from a guy, and be it Whitaker or Izzy for Cannonier in this example, and they're like, shit, my technique is paling in comparison to what is coming back at me right now. And then they start to think about not fucking up more than they think about, well, the only way I can pull this off is to blitz. And they just get in their own head. And they forget the only way they can win that fight, and they focus on just trying to stay in it.
Yeah.
Dude, I